Welcome to the third part of this video series. Now here we will go through optimizing and baking the mesh in Substance. So before we actually move on to the baking and texturing, what I want to do is make a few changes here, and particularly this piece here. You can see that it's fine here, and then all of a sudden as soon as I come down here it blends into that. So I just want to pull that out, and that's on the high poly. So let me just hide the low poly so we don't get confused there, but the high poly is definitely something I want to change. And I also want to bring this piece over here to this side here as well. So to do that, let's do that really quickly. So in order to move this piece, we can't do it normally because we have subdivisions here. So I'm going to duplicate this with Control-Shift-D. Okay, we're in solo mode, so that's fine. And I just want this piece here. So I'm just going to Control-Shift, click and drag, Control-Shift-A to grow that. Okay, and actually before I do that, I want to delete all of my subdivisions here because right now there's a little too many. So we just want to go on over to Geometry, delete lower, all right, and then now I can do this because you can't delete stuff. So now we can go on over to Geometry, Modify Topology, and then delete hidden. Okay, so now we have this piece, and what I'm going to do is just mirror that. Okay, so that is under Deformation. I'm just going to mirror that, and here it's on this side now. Okay, so Alt click on that, and get out of solo mode, and I just want to bring this onto the side here. Okay, so like that. Now obviously we do have to move this around a little bit, and in order to do that I just want to make sure that we bring back our subdivisions, right? So to do that, we're just going over to Geometry, we say Reconstruct Subdivision. This will keep doing it until it can't do it anymore, and in this case I think we only need it to about that many there. So we need 5 subdivisions, and we know that, so that's fine, that's perfect. So I'm going to bring it all the way down to 1. All the way down to 1 and maybe 2, just so we have a little bit to work with. I'm just going to move this into place. So now that we have this in place roughly, and depending on how you want that, yeah, that's looking pretty good. So we're gonna have to merge this, but I'm also looking at this piece here. Okay, that there, and I think we can do that. So let's do that as well. I think, let's see. Yeah, so this piece, I'm also gonna duplicate this piece. And again, you don't have to do any of this. This is just like extra work that's there, but we'll just have a look at that. So I'm just going to duplicate that, and let's see here. Go into solo mode, and I just want this piece here. Okay, that piece, and then, oh yeah, we first have to go to our Geometry, and then delete lower, right? And then the exact same thing with this piece. I'm just going to control click on this piece and then mask that out by control clicking, or blurring the mask by control clicking, and then I can just move this individually here. That's probably a better option. Again, I'm going to have to adjust the low poly because I adjusted all of this, but not too big of a deal. And I'll just smooth this out here a little bit. So really all I need is these pieces here. So I'll just Shift Alt click on that. Sorry, Shift Control click on that. And then Alt Shift Control drag, get those pieces out of there. And then I'll just go to move, and then move this up and move that there and do that. Okay, and I'll delete higher, and then I'll just delete hidden. So now we just have this piece like this. Okay, and I can just scale that up a little bit. And let me get my references out here. So I'm just gonna, shape this while it's here in a low poly state. Okay, I think that's good enough. I'm gonna press D for dynamic subdivisions. I'm then gonna go to thickness, pump that up quite a bit. Okay, crease, and we're gonna crease, actually under that, crease PG, yep. And then let's bring that down to about 2, 1, 2. And then what I will do is go to Z modeler, BZM, and just add a loop here. And I want to loop here as well, actually, because that's kind of bothering me. Let's bring this down to 0, just so I can do that, because that's kind of annoying me. I think that is good enough. Maybe a little too thick, so maybe bring that down to there. That should be good. I'm going to apply that, undo that, and press D again. Get rid of thickness. Okay, smooth subdivision of 4, maybe. Yeah, there we go. And we bring that crease down. That's what I wanted. Okay, that's definitely better. There we go. And now I'm just gonna have to move this manually into place here. This is because we're doing everything after the fact, so we're gonna have to deal with all of this, but it's not too big of a deal, so I don't mind it. Yep, I'm leaving that. Okay. So let's have a look at the number of subdivisions here firstly. I'm just going to apply the dynamic subdivisions, and let's just pull that out a little bit here. Actually, undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that. There we go. I just want to alt click on that, go to deformer, and I just want to deform this here just a little bit. Maybe let me just add one more to this. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Just to kind of give it a little bit more bend, okay? Yeah, I'd say that's good enough. We can apply that, or accept. And yeah, that's good enough. So I would say we're done there. So now I can apply my dynamic subdivisions. Again, that would be over here. Sorry, that's not there. It's here under dynamic subdivisions, and you can apply it there. There we go. So let's save firstly. Let's not forget about that. So now we have 5 subdivisions each. Okay, so we just want to make sure. Yep, we have 5 subdivisions. Here we go. And here we go as well. And then of course our main shoe itself has 5 subdivisions. We want all of these to be the same because I'm going to merge these down. Okay, so merge down. It's going to ask, are you sure? Because it's an undoable operation. Technically you can undo it, but there's a workaround. It's not an undo, but yeah. I'm going to merge it down twice. Okay, so now we have the same number of subdivisions. You can press Shift D, right? It goes all the way down and then all the way up, which is exactly what we want. So now that we have that, we can save again, because I don't want to do that again. Okay, that's great. And I just want to make sure to divide this. Well, actually not divide it. I'm going to delete my subdivisions. Okay, now don't save after this. I just want to do that, and then I want to decimate this. Actually, undo that. There's one thing I forgot. I forgot to push this out, pull this out here. That's one thing I need to do as well. So let's do that. So I'm going to Control Shift, click and drag. Do the same there, and then Control click, Shift Alt click. Sorry, Shift Control click. Control click, and there we go. So I'm just going to pull this out here with my move brush, and that's what I want. So just so that there's that overlap that we can see. There we go. Okay, because I didn't really have that in the previous model, and I'm moving things around here a little bit, so we are gonna have to be careful with our low poly. Yeah, and I'd say that's pretty good. Just check any areas that you might want to. Right, so maybe like here you don't want that to happen, but not a big deal, But if you wanted to, we could do this. Okay, just to pull that out a little bit. And it's not really going to work too well, so I'm going to undo that. and just pull it out this way. Right, so something like that, and then I don't want to make too many adjustments here because at the end of the day, that will show on the low poly, and we have to adjust it on the low poly as well. So I'm going to pull this one out as well. Okay, there we go. So for those of you who have skipped to this part here, what I'm showing you is that basically I've added this piece here, right, and this piece here. So those are just the two pieces I've added. I've also adjusted something, so like this piece here was a little too in, like this. Okay, kind of looked like that. Well, maybe not that bad, but around there. So I just pulled that out a little bit so it looks like that. And those are just the three things I changed. So I just adjusted some things, moved some things, and then these are the things that I changed here. So again, if you want to actually go ahead and do that with me, you can just watch the beginning of the video. But yeah, that is really all I changed. Okay. And I need to move this up as well. But yeah, that's about it. So if you want to do that, you can do that. Again, it just adheres to what we have on the shoe here. And that's about it, really. Okay, so now we have all of that prepped. I want to go ahead and go to Z plugin. Now remember, we're not going to save any of this stuff. So firstly, actually delete the subdivisions. Okay, so that is here under geometry, and then just delete lower. So now this is all one piece. We're going to go to Z plugin, decimation master, preprocess current, and then decimate this just like we did before. And then we're going to import this into Maya, and then just adjust the low poly, because obviously we move things in the high poly. So I'm just going to adjust the low poly, and that's really about it. So I won't really voice that part because we've done that a few times. So I think we kind of get the point by now. So let's just Z plugin, and yeah, I guess 10% should be fine. Decimate current, and yeah, that looks pretty good. 200,000, not a big deal. We could even go to 5% and leave it at that. I think even 2%, but we'll leave it at 5%. Decimate current, okay, and we're gonna go to Z plugin, FBX import export, and then make sure it's selected. Export. And we'll go to file, import, under the assets, and then decimated. And for some reason that moved my stuff there. I think that is because, and there we go. Yeah, so that was just a scaling issue that happens sometimes. ZBrush will always revert to some other nonsense. I don't know why it does that. It's very annoying. Oh yeah, so we have the shoe base, which I call this shoe decimated actually. So let's delete that one. Okay, we're gonna apply favorite material, existing material, decimated SDR, yep. And now we're just gonna take this low poly. I'm gonna say first, we're gonna take that low poly, and let's just put this into here, add select objects, yep. We're gonna take this low poly. So we're gonna take the decimated version that we have here, just move that into that folder, and then also I want to make that a live object, yes, and then here we can just move these pieces. Remember, we did move a few things around, and especially this piece, I might have to retopologize that, so let's have a look at that. So let's do this here, and then I'm not really going to voice everything, so you kind of get a point by then, and I might also add some pieces here. Okie dokes, here we are finally in Substance Painter. So we're gonna bake and render, or bake and texture in here rather. We'll render in Maya. But for now, let's bring everything in here and try and set things up. So firstly, we're gonna go on over to Maya and let's just open this up. So we want our low poly firstly from Maya, and everything here should be good to go. So I'm just gonna select this dude and let's just make sure that we rename this properly. So we wanna call this the shoe underscore low. Okay, so make sure that that there is in lowercase, so LOW. Okay, and in this case, that is all we need. So we're going to select that piece and let's just make sure, yep, that's fine. So file, export selection, and I want to triangulate this. So we just go down here to triangulate, that is under file type specific options, okay, geometry, triangulate. So we'll switch that on, and here we're going to go into Substance and actually create a folder called OBJs, even though these are going to be FBXs, so call them FBXs actually. So OBJs, we're going to call these the low poly underscore finals. Okay, and make sure we call that shoe so we know what it is. And export selection, yep. And this is just going to give us smoothing groups, don't worry about that. Okay, we're good to go on that one. So next up we have the high poly, and in this case it's going to be in ZBrush. So for this piece we have everything here, everything that I want, and I think this is good enough. So for here, one thing we can also do is maybe use ID groups, but I don't think we're going to need it. But just in case, I'll show you guys how to do that. So let's just do that actually. So yeah. What we just need to do here is color it in a way that suggests each piece is a different color. So let's do that. So we're going to switch on color firstly, and then secondly, we're just going to give it a bunch of different colors here. So we'll leave it at madcap gray, that's fine. And then we just want to go on over and select different colors here. So colors that are clearly different, so like red. Okay, and then we're going to go on over to color and then just say full object. Now I have a shortcut which is just full object over here, but that's the same thing, color full object. We're just going to give these different colors here, each piece that we want to be separate. All right, so don't make them too close in colors, but I think these are good enough here. So, and we don't have too many pieces, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'm holding down spacebar and selecting color, so that one will be one there. Okay, and here's another one. So we've got a few here. It's fine if you select it like that, that's no problem. Okay, and let's see, another one here. And these colors, they shouldn't be too close. Like let's say, you know, you've got green, don't put another green next to it. So these ones are clearly very different, so that's kind of what we're going for. So let's do like a sort of purple here, for example, right, for this one. So that one is definitely different. And then here as well, because this is very close, we don't need to be purple or green. So maybe like a blue. All right, that should do it for that one. There we go. And oh yeah, this piece here as well. Let's go ahead with, I think that should be fine. I don't think we have anything. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So even though it's kind of close to this one, it's not that close, and also it's on this side, so you're fine. So let's do these areas here. And we can choose like a green, because that, even though it is close to that one, and let's choose like a sort of grayer, because now I was doing like saturated but lighter. So I can do more, less saturated and lighter. So I can do more saturated and darker for these groups here. And there are color palettes that you can select for ID mapping. You can just import that as a picture and then just do that in ZBrush. That's another way of making sure that you have unique colors. Okay, that's one way, but we're not really going to worry about that because we don't have that many objects, so that's okay. So this and this red, a little too close for my liking this, so I'm going to use a different color. Maybe that yellow, let's see. Yeah, I think that's fine. So the yellow is okay. And then we have this piece here, which I'll just select like that. Okay, you know, you might say close to red, but not red. It's a bit darker, so that's fine. So then next up, I'll just take these guys here, not that one. These guys here. We can make them the same color because I don't really think. Yeah, we should be fine. We need to make them unique. So full object, but just in case we need to, I'll just make this like a blue or something. Yeah, okay. A bit close to that one, but again, it's not super close, not that close. Okay, here we go. Right. So I'm just gonna save this. And yeah, I think we are now good to go. So if we zoom in here, you can see that the there's a little bit of faceting, but this will smooth out when we export it, so that's fine. If it does bother you, you can decimate it, not decimate it, sorry, you can divide it one more time, but that'll be like 8 million polygons. That's quite a bit. So yeah, I don't think we need that. So I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. And if you want to decimate this, by the way, you should decimate it first and then color it. But in our case, we don't really need to because it's only 2 million, so it's not too bad. So we want to go to shoe and then make sure that we call this high underscore high, all in lowercase. And we also want to make sure that that was the same thing we named our shoe over here. So shoe underscore low, and just in case we can copy that and then paste that here. Okay, but make sure that it's high, like that. High spelled properly, like that. All right, and that is good to go. And then I'm just going to delete, so let's do it here actually. Geometry, delete lower, yep. And then I'll go to Z plugin, FPS export import, and then we'll go to selected, smooth normal, right? And let's see, what else do we have here? Export, that's what I want to do. Okay, substance, FBX file, and we'll call this high poly. So now we are finally in Substance Painter, so let's actually create the scene here, and we want to go to File, New, and let's just get our folder here really quickly. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and let's just go. So with the file that we're looking for here is the low poly, so let's just go to Select and paste that in. And in this case, it's our low poly shoe. All right, so the low poly, not the high poly, we want the actual low poly. And the document resolution, this is just, for now, it's just what you're seeing it at. You can always change this, it doesn't matter. 4K is totally fine for now, so we'll leave it at that. You can change this to 2K or 1K depending on your computer. Import cameras, we don't need to do that. Unwrapping, we don't need to do that because it's already unwrapped. This is pretty much it. There's nothing that we really need to change here. OpenGL and DirectX, that's something else. We'll leave it at OpenGL. So we press OK. And if yours doesn't show up, it means a few things, right? So one, you exported it with like some wrong settings, and especially with Substance, right? So if we're going over to UV editing, in our case, if these were overlapping or overlapping these borders here, that would probably kind of error out and it wouldn't export or import properly. So just make sure to check that, make sure that nothing is overlapping here, anything of that sort. So it's probably a UV error, right? So just make sure with that. And there's a few others, but for the most part, that should be it. But yeah, this is what you should be seeing. And just to navigate here really quickly, you've got Shift, right click and drag will change the lighting. Oh, it's not navigation. We've got zooming in and out with the mouse wheel. You have Alt, left click and drag to tumble, right? And then Alt, middle mouse click and drag to pan. That's pretty much the same thing with Maya, all right? So that shouldn't be too much of a shock. It's just the lighting, which we don't have in Maya just yet. So yeah. That is really it. And one thing that's really going to throw you guys off is we have the brush out at the moment. Okay, this white thing. If we hold down Control, right click and drag left to right, that will change the size of the brush. So that there is definitely going to be, and you can see it here as well. Okay, so the size over there, and if you drag up and down, okay, that there will change the softness of the brush, and you can kind of see it here, okay, and on the brush itself. So that there is definitely something you're gonna have to get used to. And if you just hold down Control, you get all of these here that tells you what's happening. So there's that as well. But yeah, that's probably the weirdest thing in Substance. But we will get to that in a second. So for now, we have this, and we actually want to bake this, obviously. So let's go down to Texture Set Settings, and we have Low Poly SDR. So for Low Poly Shader, that's what we call this over here. So if we're going over to our shaders, that's what we had it over here. And actually, let me go to Edit and delete Unused Nodes just to get rid of all of that. So we have Low Poly SDR for the shader. If you rename that, so this purpley shader here, we just go into Custom Default. okay, control 1. This shader here, if we call that something else, whatever we called it, it would register over here. So that's what's happening over there. So here under texture set settings, we have this here on by default. So you change these two like this just by clicking, right? We can go to size and change. This was the thing I was talking about at the beginning of the video, or not the beginning of the video, but at opening substance. This is what you can change. You can change it here, so no big deal. And this is where we bake everything. So we scroll down here, bake mesh maps. Okay, and this is it. So I just want to go here and say deselect all mesh maps. I just want to bake the normal map for now, and we want to bake it at 2K just to test it out. And here is also pretty important. So underscore low and underscore high. These are the suffixes, right, for what we have labeled as our low poly and what we have labeled as our high poly. We want to say match by mesh name. So we're specifically telling Substance, you know what, I do want to match this by the mesh name. Right now this is the cage file. And also what we want to do is select the high poly. Let me just select that. What we want to do is select the high poly to actually bake onto this. So this is just the low poly at the moment. If we go on over here and we select the shoe finals, right, high poly shoe finals. Okay, there we go. And if you don't see this happening, now what happened was with me, unfortunately, I had to change the scaling here to 1250 to actually make sure it worked. And so I don't know why that happened, but it happened. So yeah, just make sure that that happens, or just make sure that you see this. You have like a yellow and a blue sort of mesh. Okay, but if you don't see that, this is what will happen if it kind of errors out. I have this one here, for example. If I zoom all the way out, you'll see like a red piece and this piece. That red is the high poly, so it needs to be scaled all the way down until it hits here. So in this case, it's obviously very small, so I figured that looks like 10 times the size. So I'll go times 10 already from here, which was 125, by times it by 10, which is 1250, and then it worked out. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know why Substance does this all the time. It's like really annoying. So that one there is 1250 times the size, and then you'll see this here. And then when you play around with this distance thingy, the frontal distance, that is what you want to see. Okay, you don't want to see just blue or just yellow without the blue showing there. So I'm going to keep this at 0.01, and yeah, that's there's always something happening there. So I'm going to leave it at that, and that's gonna, let's just do a bake selected textures. Okay, so make sure that this is check marked. Okay, go to return to painting mode, and here we have it. There's our first bake. This is just to check if everything is looking good. And here I immediately see that that there is not what I want, so I'm going to move that. And on this side, it's actually fine. So what's happening there is totally fine. Stuff like this, don't worry too much about. This is just really low poly at the or low resolution at the moment. So if it is bothering you, you can bake it at a higher resolution, but I think this is good to go. Yeah, there we go. So right now, I don't have anything saved. And if this is bothering you here, where you're like, I want that to be like a proper dip, what you can do is come on over here to the low poly that we made, and you can cut another one here so it goes in between the two. And what I'm talking about is this piece here. Let me just do this, that, and then here, right? We'll cut another piece here, for example, and let me do that really quickly. Multi-cut tool like this, right? So from there to there, to there, to there, for example, right? And now if we look at it, you can see there's an actual depth there because of that. So if that bothers you, you can do that. I think I'm just gonna leave it, so I'm gonna undo that. So that is just one fix for that. And if this is bothering you, just bake it at a high resolution. But like I said, I want to change this piece here, so I'll do that really quickly, and I think that should be it really. This is more of a high poly thing, so I'll do that quickly and see if that works out in ZBrush. Okay, and let's see here. So yeah, I think that is it. I'm just gonna undo this. Yeah, changes to 1250. And I can just do this here, no problem. So really what I want is just that. That's about it. That's all I need to do. So nothing too crazy. Yeah, like that. And then let's just have a look here. Yeah, so it kind of like fades into it. It's not like the best picture, but I think that's good enough for what we're doing. So I'm just going to export this and then redo that. But again, you kind of get the point. Don't move it too much, obviously, because then we will have to redo our low poly. But that's kind of the back and forth of this. So what I want to do as well is just check for any like weird weird stuff like this. This is really trash. So that I need to recheck and see what's going on there. There might be a UV issue, so let's have a look here. I don't think it is though, but just in case, because that is really, really bad. It could just be that I'm clipping through the edges here. I don't think that is the case though. But just to make sure, let's do this and have a look here. Face. Let's just select all these guys. You know, that's pretty far out, so that's not the issue there. Okay, let's go back here. Yeah, that is an odd issue there. Anyway, we don't care too much about that anyway, so it's not the biggest issue. So everything else is totally fine though. Let's have a look at the bottom here. We will do some details on the bottom just for fun. But I'd say, yeah, other than that piece there, everything else is looking good to go. So just to explain some things here, Baked Mesh Maps again, to bring this menu out, let's have a look here. Yeah, I'm not too sure why that's happening. It's really weird. I just need to check that. Anyway. So these settings here, match by mesh name, yes. We don't have any anti-aliasing at the moment. We will put that on because that takes a bit more time to bake with. But let's bake this at 4K, firstly, and then secondly, this distance here, this tries to capture everything right from here to there. So the bigger this number is, the more it's going to capture. But the downside of that is if you're doing like close, oh, see, even here exactly. So here, you see these pieces, they're actually overlapping. See that? They're starting to overlap. Now that there is going to bake onto each other. So let me just do that to show you what actually happens. And maybe it won't because it's kind of simple, but yeah, okay, it didn't really do that. So not too much here. But if it was like a fold or something, it would bake onto each other. And I'll show you an example of that. This is really annoying me, so we'll figure that out in a second. But I think it might actually have to do with the distance as well, because it looked like it got worse. So that might be one. And then this distance here is just the other side of it. So the rear distance. Okay, you can't really see it because that's on the other side. But yeah, so 0.01 seems to be... Let's do 0.005. And here as well, 0.005. So it's getting a little bit closer there. And if you get too close, you'll start to see it going red. That's telling you you're going to have some problems. So you don't really want that in the red, as you might imagine. So 0.005, usually the 00 numbers are good. So 004 to about 008 is a good distance. It just depends. Okay, so like here, for example, we can see, okay, kind of clipping a little bit. I don't care too much about that side, but let's go ahead and bake it, see what we get. So yeah, clipping over there, again, I'll try and see what the heck's going on there. It's fine here, and then all of a sudden it just messes up. So it's probably something to do with my low poly. I might just have to re-unwrap that. And this is what baking is about, by the way. It's always like this. You have to go back and forth, check things, and come back and see what's going on, and so on and so forth. That's just how it is. So I'm gonna do mapping, planar mapping, right, and then unfold this and push that in there. And then remember that we will have to re-export this out. So yeah, okay. Maybe because it's taking up too little space. I mean, I doubt that, but just in case, I'll space this up here because we do have the space for it. So we're fine. Yeah, I think we're good to go on that one. And then you'll export it and then, you know, go back and forth. So that's kind of what you're going to be doing. And let's just do that now as we speak. So File, Export Selection, and we're going over to Substance, OBJs, and Low Poly Shoe Finals, and we want to triangulate this, don't forget. Export Selection, yes, and I just want to make sure the name, yep. The name is shoe_low, yeah, that's correct. So back here, all we have to do is say project configuration, edit project configuration, edit re-import mesh, and that will just re-import that piece. Okay. And this looks nice because it basically rewrote where that is. So let's just bake that again. Bake mesh maps, and let's do 0.006. See if that helps out. Yeah, so 006, and we can just put another loop here, and that will kind of fix that. So that's one way of doing that. So I think we'll leave this at 006. Bake that, and let's see what happens. See, I think maybe just the support loops here just kind of suck. So that's kind of what's happening. Yeah, I'll have to sort that out again, and just to see. It might be kind of freaking out there. So yeah, but other than that piece, everything else is looking pretty good here. So I just have to export this one in ZBrush, and let's actually do that now. So plugin, export. And so here you'll notice that our ID map is, well, it's not ID mapping, right? So we need to sort that out. So go to Bake Mesh Maps, and then under ID, we just need to change this to vertex color because ZBrush uses vertex color. So that will use that there. So vertex color is what we want, and let's bake that again and see what we get. There we go. Okay. So that worked, and you just need to change it. Sometimes you need to go to the actual piece and select it, and in this case, vertex color is what we needed to change. Yeah, so I'll just change this to low poly, but other than that, I think we're good to go here. So that's looking pretty good. The bottom is fine. Everything's looking great. This piece changed as well. That's fine. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with this. I might do this as well, just because it's going to be pretty easy to fix that. And so stuff like this we also want to fix. Basically, we need to kind of reinforce those edges, kind of like we did here, right? Wait, did I even reinforce that? Let me check. Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so we'll reinforce that edge, and so here it's just one piece, so we might have to cut and then do that. And yeah, so we're looking pretty good. Not too many things to change. But overall, I think, yeah, we're on the right path. So just gonna change the low poly really quickly, and then we'll get to baking properly, the finals. And yeah, so we don't have too many crazy problems. So stuff like this as well, that's gonna happen. Again, that's because, okay, this is all one piece here. We haven't cut it just to separate that piece, which we could do. I might actually do that just to separate those pieces out, because yeah, it's looking a little bit odd. But I think we could just up the distance, and that should be fine. Okay, but other than that, everything's looking good to go here. But we'll see what we need to do. But yeah, for the most part, pretty much done with the baking side. Again, if this doesn't work out, I'm just gonna leave it, but I'm pretty sure it's just the loops that I need to add there. That should be it. And yeah, so let's get to it. So we are pretty much done here, just a little bit of back and forth there. And this piece, really what's happening here is that, we just need a little bit more topology. And for this, I think that for the high poly, I just have it coming out there a little bit, right? So if we look at it like this, it's overlapping. Basically, I've got two pieces kind of intersecting. So I'm not really going to sort that out because I don't care about this edge here. So I'm just kind of leaving that alone because we just have to add more edges there and loops, which, I really don't care about. So it's really this stuff here, which I'm worried about. Okay, and speaking of worrying, I think I pushed that too much there, so I need to check that out really quickly. Oh, it's this here, okay. So I just need to change that as well. So 0.005, there we go. So yeah, that is it. So we can bake this together, and speaking of that, we can just push all of these things now. So anti-aliasing, we can have that at 16, I guess. Match by mesh name, yep. We've got normal maps and ID, so let's just bake that out really quickly. So we should be good to go on that one, and yeah, that is really it. So I'm not really going to do anything else more to this. You can see it's looking pretty good here, especially with the anti-aliasing, so it's looking a lot smoother. We don't really have too much going on, right? Again, this is more, we need to add loops, so on and so forth, but we don't care too much about that because those are the sides we're looking at, right? We're going to be seeing the shoe like this and like this, right? That's really it. We're not going to be doing too much to anything else. So yeah, and even when we're lighting this, we're not going to see this really, so don't worry too much about that. If you really want to, you can go in here and remember, see, because of this piece, it curves in and it comes back out again. So that's kind of why we have to put loops there. So like with this piece here, you can see that if we have to put one, we'd have to put another one here. Kind of bring this all the way out actually. So I guess I could do this now if I wanted to, but yeah, let's just do it. So we first make this that, and then this, and then let's just pull this all the way in there. So yeah, basically just getting that in there, and then I think we should be good to go. So you can kind of see it here, right? We just need a little bit more loops, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to leave it alone, not really worry too much about it. So I'll just export it. I won't even optimize it, right? So export, just in case, because there's always something that happens there. So just one more here, and then not that one, UV shell. Okay, we'll just optimize that piece there, and optimize this, and optimize that one there, just in case. And yeah, I think that is about it. So I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, and we will file export selection, low poly, yes. Yep, and finally, I'm just going to leave it here. So go to edit, re-import mesh, and we're just going to bake this. Okay, everything else here should be fine. So we're going to bake selected textures. Okay, and yeah, okay, that looks better. Not as bad as it was before, but again, you get the point on how to solve that if you want to, if you really want to, right? That piece there, that has to do with the high poly, so you can just re-import that if you want, but yep, that is definitely good enough, so I'm going to save that. And now let's bake the rest of the maps. So we'll go through what these do in a second, but I just want to deselect all of these guys because we already baked that. And everything else here should be fine. Okay, so we're going to do world space normal, ambient occlusion, curvature, position, thickness, not height. Yeah, that's about it. Okay, so curvature and thickness, they take quite a bit of time to bake. Sorry, AO and thickness take quite a bit of time to bake. So you might not want to bake those together if you have a slower computer, but if you have a faster computer, that's totally fine. So let's just bake that and see what we get. So again, we're just doing world space, AO, curvature, position, and thickness, and that is because we already did ID and normal, so we don't need to do those again. These settings are fine, and yeah, so that's good to go. And here we have it. So AO really adds ambient occlusion. It's just sort of like the shadows in between these areas here, especially like where light doesn't really touch. Of course, in this case, the light is touching, but we're just baking that information in there. And so artists, when they're drawing, use ambient occlusion to really add a little bit more ambient, like lighting effects, basically. So that, yeah, that really adds to it. And again, we'll go through the maps in a second, but for now, Yeah, so this, I just want to have a look at that really quickly. It's kind of bothering me. I think it's, yeah, it's just here. It's not a big deal. But again, you can kind of see the back and forth of like how to kind of, worry about these, issues here and there. But I think, yeah, that's not really something we're gonna spot too much, like unless we do a render like this, right? But for the most part, I think we'll be, that might actually bother me there. So let's see. So it's fine on this side, actually. It's really good on this side. And then here it kind of falls apart just a little bit. So we will get that, and here as well, that's kind of annoying me. So let's see how to deal with that. So that there's the problem. Let's just go to vertex, and I'm just gonna move this right just in like that. Maybe not that much. Let me just switch off my thing there and then move this in like that. Okay, that should be good enough. And then here, let's see where it was. Yeah, on this side. Okay. Let's just push that in a little bit more. Push that in a little bit more. Yep, that should be good to go. And then back to object mode. Okay, object mode. And we can just press Alt-Shift-D, we can save, and we can file export selection. And low poly, yes. Edit, re-import mesh, and we'll just have to bake all of these again. But not really a big problem. So really you bake the normal map just to have a look at that, and it was there before this, so yeah, so it looks to be fine now. Yep, we are now good to go. If you want to, you can, cut more edges here and try and do something with that, but I think we are, yep, that's good. So I'm leaving that, I'm calling it. We are now done with the baking, finally. And now we're gonna move on to texturing. So let me just save this really quickly. And I'm going to, well, it's gonna take a second now because we baked a lot of maps. I'm gonna add a full layer really quickly. And don't worry, I'll explain what all this is for in a second. I'm just gonna go to properties. Okay, you can right click and do all of this here as well. So whichever one is easier for you, right? So I'm just gonna go here and we'll go to just any color really. I will add a black mask. That will just mask everything out, and whatever we do to the black mask will be affecting that layer. So in this case, color selection, the ID mask. And I want to go to pick color, pick that one, and there we go. So that's what the ID mask does. It paints areas that have been, and we can bring this tolerance up quite a bit here, maybe not that much. So like that much, right? And because this layer here, if I go to pick color, these greens, whoops, minus that. These greens here are kind of close to one another. So that's why you shouldn't have them too close. I can just go and rebake the ID map if I wanted to, but I don't think it's going to be a problem, right? So that there is fine. So that's an easier way to paint this. Another way to do it would be to just literally right click and say add a paint layer and then paint that on, right? So paint the area that you want. But obviously doing this in such a way can be a little bit tedious because now you're gonna have to paint this and then, press X and then paint that out. Okay, so that's one way of doing that, which is useful. Obviously, we will be painting like that a little bit. And then the other way would be to press F1. Okay, now we've got our actual UV view over here. Okay, I just want to see where this is. Here we go. And because the way I laid it out, if we can go on over to the polygon tool, right? And then select it this way and say paint it like that. So that's why it's a good idea to match your polygons in that way. Now obviously it's not exact because it's slightly off in some ways like that. So that's why ID maps are very, very useful to help us select those pieces like that. And F2 by the F1 and F2 to do that, or you can do it here. Okay, so to help select and paint like that, because obviously this is all one piece and we need to be able to select them like they were individual parts like this. So if we wanted to paint this separately, paint that separately, so on and so forth, that there would help us out, right? So that is what an ID map does. Again, I'll go through everything in just a little bit. Actually, I'll do that next. So just to go through the maps, and then after that we can actually start texturing. So let's do that, go through the maps, and then we will texture. Now, just as another quick note, I'm just going to go through the maps and kind of what they do, and as we texture, you'll kind of see what they do as well. But for the most part, this is just an overview. You should definitely go ahead and go on over to these documents. So just type in marmoset and then map types, so on and so forth, and they'll kind of give you a bunch of explanations, and there's tons of documents, tons of videos, etc. So we have, first up, we have the curvature map. Now, this here will just determine, as you can imagine, right, useful for masking or defining borders and cavities, right? So convexities and cavities of the mesh. Now, it's used with curvature and dirt and scratch. So like in Substance Painter, when you're adding all of these things, so like dirt and scratches and stuff like that, it looks at the curvature and it tries to determine where these scratches and dirt will occur the most. So it will do this, and then dirt will settle in certain places, and it will use these maps to try and navigate that, or generate that rather. So for normal maps, we have the normal maps, and this one here will, let's see if we can find a picture of that. I think it's here. So for normal maps, you have these sort of funny looking maps here, and each one represents an X, Y, or Z channel, and that is taking 3D information, right, the 3D information from the high poly model, and it's baking that down onto a normal map. And normal maps are of course 2D, and that they will just give you the 3D information either as red, green, or blue, and then mix those so that this represents left, right, up, down, back and forth, so on and so forth in a 2D format. So that way it's read in a 3D program. All right, so here we have objects as well, and again you can kind of read what this does. Height map is just a displacement map, so it gives you the idea of height, so it just basically fakes that, if you will. Okay, position map, this will also give you sort of like gradients, so on and so forth. Probably nothing you're going to use too much, except for when you want to do gradients for your character. Curvature, right, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. Convexity, cavity, thickness. Okay, this is also, as you can imagine, it shows the thickness of the model. So areas that are really dense, like the stomach of a character, was probably going to have a lot of thickness, and then the hands and ears, for example, won't have a lot of thickness. So if you're applying like SSS, that'll definitely help out with the map there as well. And you can also adjust the scale to kind of mess with the thickness. So maybe you're getting too much thickness or too little thickness in the hands, then you can adjust the scale to kind of mess with that. Right, so again, you can read through these guys here. And then we've got a lighting map, so ambient occlusion. Now this here is just, it's going to add like this nice sort of shading effect to it to kind of show proximity. So anything that's close to one another, it'll have a lot more shading and ambient occlusion. It's not completely necessary, because when you light it, you'll also get that depth, but this just adds to it. So ambient occlusion. That's really about it. We've got ID and mask. I already explained what ID maps do, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's about it. So obviously they give you all the maps, so you can read what metalness does, what roughness does, specular, gloss, albedo, so on and so forth. So this here is definitely something you want to read up on and do a little bit more research on yourself. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of it. And yeah, that actually brings us to the end of this video. So that is it for baking. Up next, in the next videos, we will do texturing and rendering. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this one. So like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section. Don't forget to check out my website, my blog, my Discord, all of that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you in the next one.